Hello everyone, in today's episode we're going to talk about changing the world. Hello everyone, changing the world, changing your world and changing things around you for the better seems like a big task, and quite often I meet people who are really frustrated. They want to make a real dent in poverty, they want to make a real dent in global inequality, they want to make a real dent in their communities, and sometimes the inability to see those changes manifest quickly creates a lot of frustration in their life. And to illustrate this point and go through some points on how we can change the world ourselves, I want to start with a quote, and that quote is, "If you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito." From the Dalai Lama, from Lady Amy. So Amy and I had an experience in which I had a single mosquito, or seemingly a single mosquito, keep me up for most of the night recently, and it's incredibly funny to know that I was dead tired, wanted to sleep, and a single mosquito, through its perseverance of wanting to get my blood, kept me up all night. And what a great quote by the Dalai Lama, talking about the fact that something as small as a mosquito can make such an impact and such a difference. Quite often we think we need to smash through things and break barriers, but in reality, persistence and the ability to continue persevering is what makes all the difference. So, personally, I fell into the trap of wanting the world to change very quickly, looking around me and seeing what the truth is. The truth is that in our modern society, a lot of people are cast aside. A lot of people are in situations where they have mental health, they can't keep up with this fast-paced demand. Understanding that we've only had the internet for really 20 years, and for 99.9% of human evolution, we'd never looked at a screen before, let alone looked at a screen for 8-9 hours a day, and people are falling by the wayside. They don't have opportunities to help, they don't love themselves, and they look around them and see other people who don't love themselves. And the most amazing thing of human nature is our ability to care so deeply that we want to change, and changing the world can be a frustrating process. But we're going to talk about ways to make it not so frustrating and look at how we can really still get things achieved even though they can seem so enormous. So step number one, as mentioned, don't get frustrated. Understand that your concept of time and what you have to get done in time can be can manipulate you. The classic example is Van Gogh. Sold one sketch and one painting his entire life. He tell you what, he deserved to be frustrated, but he didn't. He kept painting, and now we know Van Gogh to be the greatest painter of all time. Understanding that what you do now, the karma, the things that you put in motion now will have dividends. Now, you might not see those dividends, but those dividends must absolutely fulfill, and the fruit from that tree must bear. It's as simple as, Isaac Newton saying every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's a fundamental it's a fundamental law of physics. So knowing that what you do, whilst might not reap immediate results, is still worth doing. Number two, anti-war and creating sides. Quite often, Martin Luther was asked, "Are you against the Vietnam War?" And he'd say, "I'm not against the Vietnam War. I'm pro-peace." This was a really unbelievable understanding by the great man Martin Luther, in which that sometimes when there's an issue, creating a counter-resistance to that issue inflames the issue. We all know what it's like when some pork chop gets up on TV and says some racist stuff, and really they should get no airtime. But then groups come up against him and say, "Did you hear what this guy said?" "No, I didn't." "Oh, he said this." "Oh, well, let's create a group and attack him." And what happens is you actually propel the issue forward, and you create two groups who have animosity against each other. And when you create sides, you create the need for people to defend themselves. I'm sure you've been in arguments where someone's pushed you to the point where you start defending something that you don't even necessarily have much of a personal belief in, but you feel like you've been pushed against the wall. Number three, Martin Luther versus Malcolm X. And not using Martin Luther again, he was the Nobel Peace Prize activist, so he knows how to change the world. Malcolm X and Martin Luther grew up in the exact same sort of worlds. They grew up in America with segregation, and Martin Luther wanted to change it. Martin Luther went and met Gandhi, read lots of books, and understood that peaceful non-violence would chip away at the status quo. People thought it was impossible. People think that he would never get anywhere with this peaceful approach. But ultimately, he was standing right next to John F. Kennedy when they signed and Lyndon Johnson when they signed the Civil Rights Bill, which changed and made it illegal to discriminate in the United States. On the other hand, we had the other way of moving forward, which is Malcolm X, who promoted violence and promoted more segregation. Obviously, he was angry and he had a right to be angry, but by choosing to fight and to create a separate side, he became a platform for white people to say, well, this is why we can't give the blacks power, because they'll do this and they'll be angry at us and they'll retaliate. And ultimately, he was killed by individuals within a similar organisation. Now, while they both met their ends, Malcolm X is seen as more of a fashionable figure now. You see him on baseball caps and t-shirts, but the content and quality of what he said has been lost through its violence, whereas Martin Luther has statues in Washington. Number 4, moving on from Martin Luther to Gandhi, be the change you want to see. There's nothing more liberating than not talking, not trying to convince anyone, but just stepping into a room and being the person you want others to be. That is one of my absolute guiding motivations in life, is to be the person that I wish other people could be. And then from that light, make a difference. And when you be the change you want to see, it's crazy. You start seeing the change around you. Infinite compassion. People are going to do the wrong thing. People are going to upset you. Your just cause is going to be attacked by other people who go, you can't give handouts to the poor because they'll just, etc., etc., etc. Infinite compassion. Know that every problem in this world stems from someone who was hurt. Adolf Hitler was a disturbed and hurt young boy who went into a cruel first war and then acted out his sick fantasies on a global scale. There are reasons why people do things. There are no devils in this world, there are no bad people. Knowing that there should be a level of compassion is the only way to understand this. For the last 10,000 years, we've punished people for being bad people, and what has it gotten us? Nowhere. We've got full jails, we've got just as much crime. Compassion and understanding what is the environmental reasons on why people become this way. Environment. It is very true that the where you grow up and how you grow up will define a lot of the choices in life. In fact, there's a lot of, when I watch the American elections and everyone's saying, I'm rich, therefore you should trust me, and I've got all this money, therefore I must be a good manager. No. Or I pulled myself up from the bootstraps and, look at me. The number one defining characteristic in the United States anyway, on whether you are rich right now, is whether you grew up in a rich environment. The number one, not education, not hard work, not hard study and climbing up the corporate ladder. The number one statistical factor on whether you are rich today as an adult in America is if you grew up in a rich environment. Geez, I think there should be less high-fiving of themselves and understanding that their environment caused that. Therefore, the same statistic anomaly is present. The number one reason people are in poverty in the United States is not education, it's not lack of awareness, it's not lack of hard work, it's that they grew up in a poor environment. That's it. So for everyone out there saying, that guy in the street just, hasn't got it together, hasn't worked hard enough, or I don't understand why African countries just can't get it together. Know that this junk you're sold about everyone just having equal opportunities and everyone, across the world having the same opportunity, it's not true. Your environment will determine how you behave, and trying to change the world first, we must change the environment. Meditate on your problems. A lot of problems that we see in the world are they're all created by the mind. And to meditate allows you to cut through the surface level problems that can anger you or frustrate you and see the next level of problems. And it's something I recommend, whether it's changing your workplace, changing a partner. Before you do anything, I really recommend meditating on the problem to see if the problem is even really there, because you may be surprised that it could simply be your perception of the problem. Second to last, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Great, Dr. Wayne Dyer. Let me say that again, because I believe this. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Can I explain it? No. Quantum mechanics has some insight into how, the waveform has collapsed and how this could be true, but I don't need all that. I know fundamentally in my heart, from an experiential level, that when I changed my perception, the things around me change. And we know what it's like. You could hate someone for missing your birthday and think that they're a bad person. 2 weeks later, they'll find out they were in a car accident that day. And then all of a sudden, your perception of that person changes immediately. Why? Because you changed the way you looked at that event. The event didn't change. They still didn't ring you on your birthday, but your perception completely changed, and you feel much better about the fact they weren't deliberately, doing it to you. Changing the world is what we're here to do, but our world, being the change that you want to see, is an incredibly powerful tool to not only change yourself, but change the environment and the people around you for the better. It's your job. As you make yourself better, I guarantee those around you just naturally get lifted up. And once more, the quote by the great Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Definitely something to think about, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.